Hello, Conversations with Ronnie Keith podcast fam. This is John, aka Big Time, 33.3% of the Short Desk podcast, inviting you to join myself, Dwayne, and Ronnie Keith every Tuesday as we sit around our short desk and discuss all things in news, sports, entertainment, and a little financial advice. Check out episode 178 as it is a reboot of the show and we discuss our vacation week amongst other things. You're listening to Conversations with Ronnie Keith.
This is Conversations with Ronnie Keith. Thank you guys so much for listening in today. We have a special treat for you all with Conversations with Ronnie Keith. Before I get into our special treat and our special guest today, I want to thank you guys for the support. Thank you for everything that you guys have been doing, sharing. A lot of feedback from last week with me and Iris. And yes, we will get to those fan mail questions regarding more in interest into our vacation and style. So we'll get to those fan mail when she's back next week. And we will go from there. But thank you guys for all of the feedback. So this week, as you all may know, some of you may not know, in the month of October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That is a month that was put together on October 18th is actually Pink Day, where you wear pink to support. I know when you hear this on Friday, it'll be November 1st, but that does not mean that we cannot talk about breast cancer awareness and how to be on the lookout for it as a woman, how to gain support for it, how to fight through and all the things that goes along with that. It's a very hard conversation. And so today I wanted to bring on a special guest to have this type of conversation with you guys. I want to bring on a familiar voice. If you listen to the Short Desk podcast, she's a co-host there with me for a couple of years, and that is Miss Steph Morgan. Steph, how are you doing today?
Hey, I am amazing. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking, and thank you for coming on Conversations with Ronnie Keith.
Thank you for
I really
having
appreciate it.
me.
Of course, of course, of course. So, Steph, I know, we have an audience here that I know there's a few that don't listen to the Short Desk podcast. How I know? Because I can tell by the download. So, there's some cities that pop up here that are not popping up on Short Desk. And so I'm not going to talk to you guys today assuming that you know Steph's story. So we're going to start from ground zero with Steph. Steph is a breast cancer survivor.
Yes.
She went through being diagnosed. And so we're going to talk to her a little bit about that today. I do want to make you guys aware that it is very important to make sure that all women get screened for breast cancer. The American Cancer Society estimated that in 2024, approximately 310,720 women will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer.
Yes.
This is about 1 in 3 of all new cancers diagnosed in women each year.
And the vast majority of those numbers are Black and Latino women.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So, Steph, let's dive right into your journey, right? So, let's start from the very beginning with how you found out that you were diagnosed with breast cancer.
Well, on February 14th, 2023, I had my yearly mammogram. Now, I've been having mammograms since I was 39 years old. I'm 44 now. But I've been having mammograms since I was 39 years old, mainly because there is a history of breast cancer in my family. And
Mm.
for those of you who do listen to the Short Desk podcast, I have heart health history as well. And because of a device that I have implanted, there. So it's like, okay, I have to have these mammograms just to make sure there are no tumors, no infection or anything like that. So I went for my mammogram, and listen closely to the dates, people, so you can understand how serious this is. I went for my mammogram on February 14th, 2023. I received my results on February 17th of 2023. They were clear. There was nothing
Mm.
found, no lump, no nothing. On the morning of February 28th, 2023, I woke up and found a lump.
Wow. So let me ask you this stuff. When you say you woke up and found a lump,
Mhm.
of course, this was you doing your own self checkup and self exam, correct?
No, actually, what happened was I woke up. I sleep on my stomach the majority of the time. I
Mm-hmm.
woke up, and when I went to push up with my arms to turn
Mm-hmm.
over,
Mm-hmm.
my left arm hit the side of the breast, and that's when the sharp pain. I felt the sharp pain. So then I jump up and I go in the bathroom, and I'm taking my hand and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
examining, and it was there, like when I tell you, like hard as a golf ball, it was there.
Oh
It
wow.
was not
Wow.
there the night before. Now, mind you, I was having some pain the night before, but I chopped it up to normal PMS stuff. Because women
Mm-hmm.
listening, when it's that time of the month or something's coming on, you experience pain in the breast. But this felt like a hard knot. It was really, really hard. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? Um,
And how many days was this after your mammogram results came back?
14 days.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
that's not to say that the cancer cells weren't forming. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
there was no tumor at the time of my mammogram. So keep that in mind, as I talk about some things a little later. So I called my primary care doctor, and she told me to come in immediately. So I went into my primary care doctor the next day. She didn't have anything that same day, the next day. And they did an exam, and that's when she was like, we recommend a biopsy. Now,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't have the appointments for the biopsy clinic and stuff. They were booked up. So, I'm calling all around trying to find someone, and finally they called me back, and they said, we can get you in on March. I want to say it was March 17th, 18th, somewhere up in there. I was like, okay. No, let me back up. First they did another mammogram. Let me back up. I
Mm-hmm.
went for my exam. They did another mammogram, and that's when they saw the tumor, and then they recommended a biopsy because of the way the tumor looked. They said the tumor looked a little odd, especially to say it wasn't there 2 weeks prior.
Right.
So I went, I had my biopsy, I want to say on March 18th. I'm a little fuzzy on that day, but on that date, because between the time that I found the lump and then the time that I received my diagnosis, I'm not going to lie, those days were fuzzy and they all ran together.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in for my biopsy. And when I tell you the days between the time that I had the biopsy and when I got my results, I was a nervous wreck. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I was just scared.
Right.
So,
Right.
um, my primary care doctor called me on March 22nd, and she said, your results should be in tomorrow. She was like, and my office will call you. Now, this is why I tell people you have to be careful, medical professionals, because I know everybody loves my chart and all this good stuff, but sometimes you have to turn those notifications off. I learned that I had cancer through my chart and not a
Oh
cancer.
wow.
I was at work,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sitting at my laptop, and I was having a conversation with my coworker, and my phone lit up and I saw my chart. Now, mind you, the only reason I went ahead and logged into my chart is because I was waiting on something to come back from my cardiologist about a prescription. We were changing my medications. So I
Mm-hmm.
logged onto my chart, and there were the results basically saying that the lump was malignant, which means there's cancer present.
Mm-hmm.
I fell apart at work. I remember
Yeah.
my coworker was like, all she could hear was me screaming. And it literally took them about 45 minutes to calm me down.
Mm,
Now, just to give a little history, breast cancer runs in my family. My aunt, my mother's sister, died from breast cancer when she was in her 40s.
mm,
Um, my father died from cancer. My grandmother
right.
had breast cancer. Another one of my aunts had breast cancer. So, I'm just sitting there. When you hear cancer, you think, "Oh, I'm going to die." That was
Of
my very
course.
first thought. I'm going to die.
Right. Right. Right.
So I calmed down, and as I was driving home, I was just trying to get my mind right. And I knew I had to call my mother, but I was dreading that call.
Hmm.
Telling my mother I had cancer was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
Hmm.
And that includes burying my father, burying my son, like just having to tell my mother I have cancer.
Did she know about the lump and you having to go in to get examined and all those things? Did she know that beforehand, or did you just hit her out of nowhere with this?
She knew. I think
Okay.
she wasn't worried about it at first because also, women, there's a thing that some women have. It's called dense breast tissue.
Hmm.
And normally women with dense breast tissue will often have cysts and stuff pop up. I've never had one before, but we were
Hmm.
hoping that that's what it was.
Hmm.
Um, so when I left work, I called my friend Nakia first. And I'm not gonna lie to you, there were three people that I was afraid to call that day. I was afraid to
Hmm.
call my mother, I was afraid to call my friend Tony, and I was afraid to call you
Mm.
because I know how you are. I know
Right.
how you are. You're
Right.
always fussing at me about taking care of my health and all of this good stuff.
Right.
So I called my friend Nakia. I was like, okay, because Nakia is always the voice of reason. I was like,
Hmm.
she'll be able to talk to me until I get home. Like, okay, pump me up to tell my mom. Now, mind you, I was emotionless, stone faced. Like, I wasn't crying. I wasn't anything. I was just real monotone, real calm, real,
With your friend.
with, yeah. By that time, by the
How,
time my coworkers calmed me down and gave me,
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, how do you remember how your coworkers were able to get you calm, and were you able to finish out your work
I
day?
couldn't finish my work day. They were just like, go home. I was sitting there. One was fanning me. The other had like a cool rag on my neck. I just couldn't get it together.
Yeah.
And I know one of my coworkers, I don't remember this, but she told me the only thing I kept saying was, what am I going to tell my mother? What am I going to tell my mother? So I called Nakia and I was like, okay, Nakia's always a calm voice of reason. She lost it on me. I was like,
Mm.
so, I was
Yeah.
like, dang, that was my calm voice of reason. She's not calm right now. So, and that goes to say, I'll tell everybody when it comes to cancer, it doesn't just affect you.
Right.
Of course, it is about you, but it's about the people who truly love you too.
Hmm.
So I came here in my apartment. I came in like I didn't turn the TV on, I didn't anything, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I took 2 shots of vodka,
Mm.
and then I called my mother
Hmm.
because I needed some liquid courage. I was like, I probably shouldn't be drinking, but I need some liquid courage, so I called my mother. Um, she was very quiet at first. Now,
Hmm.
for people who don't know my mom, oh, my mother is very, very, she's never quiet. She's not a quiet person. She was very, very quiet at first, which scared me because I'm looking,
Hmm.
like, okay, I need a reaction from you. I need something.
Right.
And finally, she said, God's got you.
Mm.
She was like, you will be fine. But here's the problem with that. I've heard my mother say that a million times in my life. But her voice was shaking so bad, I was like, she doesn't even believe that in this moment.
Or she had to be strong for you.
Yeah, her voice was shaking. It was something. I was just
Yeah.
like, I've never heard her like this. So my primary
Because going into a panic would not have done you any favors. You know what I mean?
would not have, it wouldn't. So I appreciate her for that. And who's to say
Yeah.
she didn't lose it behind the scenes? I never asked, she never told. But
Absolutely. Absolutely.
you know. So my primary care doctor finally called me to give me the results. I said, well, I said it just like that. I said, girl, I found out 3 hours ago. She's like, what? What? I said, it came through on my chart. She's like,
Oh
oh my
man.
God, Miss Morgan, I'm so sorry. I told, so, I was like, whatever, water under the bridge. So I went back to her office for them to do me a referral.
Hmm.
So from the biopsy, what they were able to tell the grade of the cancer tumor, but not the stage. Now, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, can you explain the difference between grade and stage for everyone?
So the grade, you have the grade scale is from grade 1 to grade 3. The grade is how abnormal the cancer cells look because some cancer cells can mimic regular cells. And what
Mm.
cancer cells do is they take over regular cells and turn them cancerous. It's like, how Pac-Man goes through and eat the little white ball. That's
Hmm.
what cancer
Yes.
cells do to regular cells.
Hmm.
So grade 3 is the most abnormal, and most times they can look at cells that are grade 3 and they can immediately tell, okay, that's cancer. Mine, I had a grade 3.
Mm.
Now the stages of cancer go from 1 to 4, I think 4 or 5. But anyway, with 1 being the best chance for prognosis and 4 or 5 being the worst.
Hmm.
Um, so mine was a grade 3, meaning my cells were completely abnormal in that tumor. Um, and my stage was a stage 2B, meaning that it was early, but it was aggressive too, because I had what's called triple negative breast cancer, which is the most aggressive form of breast cancer.
Wow.
And what that means is breast cancer cells, or not breast cancer cells, but all cancer cells, they feed off of hormones such as estrogen and progesterone. Triple
Hmm.
negative breast cancer doesn't feed off of hormones. It just eats away at your cells and it's very aggressive.
Wow.
But let me tell you how God was looking out for me. They did some more tests and stuff like that. My cells were all contained to the tumor. It had not spread anywhere else in my breast.
Mm. Which is important because
Oh,
that means that if it had spread,
mhm,
it would have, if it had spread to other cells,
mhm.
that means it's spreading around your body.
So, given all that, they looked at me. They said, "There's this woman. Her name is I won't tell her name. I'm not gonna put that out there."
Hmm.
But they was like, "She's one of the best breast cancer surgeons here. We're gonna refer her to you." And they gave me a number to call the office. Now, when you are diagnosed with cancer, you may end up with 3 different oncologists depending on the severity of the cancer in the case. You have a surgical oncologist, which you see first. Basically, they give you your options as to your course of treatment. You have a medical oncologist who will administer chemotherapy. And then you have a radiation oncologist, and that's self explanatory. So I'm calling around for this surgical oncologist first. And now, mind you, this is March 23rd, 2023. They were like, her first opening was June 2nd. I said,
Mm.
so you're telling me I have the most aggressive form of breast cancer there is? Is at a stage 2B. And you're telling me I have to wait until June? I said, June, I could be dead.
Hmm.
So I remember standing in the lobby of that building at Piedmont Breast Center. And I was just crying. And this lady came up to me and she said, "What's wrong?" And I told her everything that had happened. And I could tell she worked there. I told her everything that could happen. She said, "Now, mind you, I'm a woman who prefers not to go to male doctors. That's just me." Okay.
Hmm.
She
Yeah.
sat there. She said, "There's a doctor here." She said, "He's an Atlanta native, but he was working in Texas. He's here back in the Atlanta area now." She was like, "He's an amazing surgical oncologist." She said, "And I can get you in to see him on Tuesday." And so
Hmm.
I was looking at her. I was like, "I don't know about." So she looked at me. She said, "My name is Donna." I will say her name. Donna is amazing. She said, "My name is Donna." And she said, "If you don't like him, if you're not satisfied," she said, "I will reimburse your copay out of my pocket."
Oh wow.
So I
Wow.
said, "Okay." So I came home. And that's when I called you.
Hmm.
I was like, I have to tell my friend that I have cancer. And I say that because, you are a brother to me. And, we've been co-hosting. And I was like, I don't know what entails, with my life, with the show. Like, he needs to know.
Hmm.
Your reaction was similar to my mother's. You were very, very quiet. And that scared me because you're never quiet. I'm like, so I mean, you tell me what was running through your head.
um, man, it was. I think it was a sense of confusion, right?
Mhm,
Because you did not. When you told me, I listened, and that's what I try to do. I listen intently whenever people tell me things or talk to me. I want to have a conversation or anything. I want to listen intently, so I make sure that I'm able to grasp it all, digest it, and then be able to think about what has been said and respond in kind.
mhm,
And I was trying to digest it, and then you hit me with how aggressive it was.
mhm.
And so that's when it was just a ball of confusion for me.
Yeah.
But I could not, I was doing my best not to emote any type of emotion because number one, my number one concern is you with this news that you just provided me to. And you have to be sensitive to that person because you, in that moment,
Mhm,
a person is sharing some news that is life altering.
mhm.
And so once you go through the theatrics, it becomes more about your theatrics and that person trying to calm you down with what they're going through than you being there to support that person. And so in that moment, it was just like, oh,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
you know,
It was a lot.
yeah.
And so that day, I sat there, and when I tell you, I went to my prayer closet. I was like, God, it is me and you because I knew I was in for a fight. I have watched
Hmm.
people around me deal with cancer. I watched my father die from cancer. I was sitting there, I was like,
Right.
God, I know I'm in for a fight.
Hmm.
So after I prayed and I had a conversation with God, I gave myself 24 hours of a pity party. And I don't know if you remember, I posted that on social media. Now, people may wonder, why did you tell social media that you have cancer? I'm a very transparent person.
Hmm.
And I know I have some solid and amazing prayer warriors on social media. I was like, this is the fastest way to tell my family and friends without me having to make 50 million phone calls because I don't have the energy. I just didn't. I gave myself 24 hours. I said, I'm going to cry. I'm going to feel sorry for myself. I'm going to throw a pity party. But after that 24 hours is up, I fight. And after that 24 hours was up, I mean, of course, I shed some more tears along the way, along the journey, but it wasn't the pity party aspects. I
Hmm.
got up every single day for 6 months and I fought and I fought and I fought. And I went in to see the surgical oncologist, and his name is Dr. Christopher Jean Louis. He is with Piedmont Breast Center in Henry County in Stockbridge, Georgia. When I tell you that man was God sent, he made me feel very comfortable. He explained everything to me. So he told me, he said, here are your options. He said, we can do, he said, with the way it is, he said, in the cells, he said, it is contained to the tumor. They didn't find any cells in the lymph nodes, none of that. He said, this is what we can do. He said, you can have, now let me back up. Also, grade has to do with the size of the tumor as well. My
Hmm.
tumor was right at 5 centimeters. And he said, at that point, we don't want to cut a tumor that big out because the chances of the cells splitting and the cancer cells splitting and spreading, he said, are great when a tumor is that size.
Mm.
He said, so
Okay.
we're going to have to shrink it first through chemotherapy.
Hmm.
Now, the thing with chemo, I've I've always been nervous about chemo because, again, I watched my father go through chemo. I watched other loved
Mhm.
ones go through chemo. And, I've always known or felt that chemo
Uh-oh.
was
I
rat
think I lost
poison.
you. You there?
Can you hear me?
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. A little technical difficulties. That should bring back some fond memories for you still.
Yeah.
Um, so you were speaking on watching your father go through chemotherapy and how
Yeah.
difficult that was going to be for you.
And I was young at the time. So my doctor told me, he
Hmm.
said, we can either shrink it and remove it, do a lumpectomy, or you can do a complete mastectomy, right? So
Hmm.
me, I'm young. I was like, well, I don't want to lose my breast. So I was like, we can do,
That's what a mastectomy is?
yes, yeah,
Losing a breast.
yes.
Okay.
So I was just like, I'll
Okay.
I'll go that route, and I prayed about that first. I did not make any moves without God's consent. Let me put that out there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So then comes another thing with my heart health history. They got to tailor chemo to protect the heart. So I had to go through a series of tests. I had to go through what's called patient education. They do that for all cancer patients, the patient education, because they want to let you know about these drugs they're putting in your body. So chemo comes
Right.
along. I had to go every Friday for 24 weeks. And I ended up going every Friday for 22 weeks. So I had a course of 7 different drugs to include Benadryl in case there are allergic reactions and a steroid to coat and protect my heart. So
Wow.
I sat in that chemo chair every Friday, anywhere between 3 and 6 hours. And mind you, I didn't take time off from work. I was working 40 hours still, Monday through Thursday, sitting in the chemo chair all day Friday. If I had known then what I know now, I would have told him to take the breast off.
Really? Why?
Chemo, chemo will make you wish that God would just come and take you. I'm not gonna
Mm.
lie to you, friend. There were plenty of nights I was in here on my floor praying that God would just take my life. That's how sick chemo had me.
That's what I was going to ask you. What does it do to your body?
Well, first of all, chemo kills the cancer cells, but it kills a lot of the healthy cells too. First, I lost my hair, and that was devastating.
Hmm.
Devastating when my hair started. I was at work again when my hair started to fall out. I went to just innocently take my finger and scratch my hair because a spot in my hair was itching. And when I took my finger down, there was a huge clump of hair on the end of my finger. And
Mm.
my coworker came in because, again, I'm having another meltdown. She's like, "It's hair all on your shirt." So I'm sitting there and I rubbed my hands across my hair, and big handfuls of hair came out. So I went home, came home, went to the barbershop. And I have to give a shout out to, I'm mad I can't remember the name of the barbershop. Because when I tell you, Black men took care of me along this whole journey, and I love y'all for that. Thank you. I went in the barbershop to get my hair shaved, and I told them what was going on. There were some men in there waiting to get their hair cut. They asked them to leave. They closed the barbershop, closed the windows, and those men stood around me. The barbers in there stood around me in a circle so nobody could accidentally peek in while that man shaved my head.
Mm.
That was the most, I'm trying not to cry thinking about it now. That was the most touching thing because I was so embarrassed. I was devastated.
Yeah.
But chemo kills your healthy cells too. So first went, I lost every bit of hair on my body, my eyebrows, my eyelashes, everything. Okay.
Hmm. Did the doctor? Let me ask you
Mhm.
something. Before this
Mhm.
happened, did the doctor prep you for this? Did he let you know what the side
Yes,
effects would be?
absolutely. They do that in
Eh,
the patient education class. Now,
okay.
mind you, why people love to ask, why didn't you go cut your hair ahead of time? I was listening to other people because what happens is everybody doesn't always lose their hair with chemo. My father didn't.
Right.
My
Right.
father didn't lose
Right.
any of his hair when he went through
Wow.
chemo.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm gonna wait. And after my first chemo session, my hair began to fall out. Like I had my first session that Friday, and that was that Monday my hair started falling out.
Mhm.
So chemo took my hair,
That was
my
quick.
eyebrow, like any hair that was on my body, my legs, the hair on my little light hair on my knuckles, everything, it was gone. My eyebrows, eyelashes, my eyelashes.
Just immediately fell out.
Yeah. My eyelashes fell out. I was again sitting at work and I went to rub my eye and all of the lashes were on my finger. I said,
My
it was
goodness.
just a lot. So then it began to affect. Okay, so during chemo, you have to wear what's called cooling gloves on your hands and your feet.
Mhm.
Chemo, they tell you it will cause your toenails to fall out. So I would
Wow.
put the cooling gloves on because that's supposed to help. But my toenails didn't fall off, my fingernails were falling off. So
Mm.
that was painful as well. And then I began to have skin changes like rashes and dry spots. And it was just, and there
Mhm.
was some days you couldn't even touch me. Like I couldn't stand for my arm to rub up against the table or, it was a lot. And then comes the stomach issues. Um, I threw up every day for 4 months. I couldn't keep
Wow.
any food down. The only thing I could eat was oatmeal and fruit, and I could barely eat that. I coffee. They like it was weird too because my first time going to chemo, and shout out to my friend Nakia because she took me to chemo the first few weeks. I would walk in the chemo room, and the first thing you're going to notice are coffee pots all around the walls. And I'm like, what's going on? So, coffee is actually beneficial when you're going to chemo. It helps with the nausea. And, they say coffee will help to fight cancer cells. It's not exactly proven, but, if you get
Mhm.
chemo and they just drink coffee. So, um, I could keep coffee down. Coffee actually leveled the nausea. So that helped a lot. My,
So how much of that did you have to drink it regularly or
I would drink about 8 to 12 ounces every morning. I wouldn't overdo it
wow.
because if you know me, you know I love coffee, but I don't overdo it.
Right, right.
Um,
What about your appetite?
there was no appetite some days. Like I was
Mm.
losing weight fast. Because everything I drank or ate, I threw it back up, and then the nosebleeds started because, of course, like chemo takes all of your hair, so it takes the hair out of your nose too. So there's nothing filtering stuff going in your nose, like nose hair is there to filter stuff. So my nose was super dry and super sensitive. So I had nosebleeds every morning when I woke up. Like I would wake up, there's blood on the pillow.
Oh my god.
Um,
And that's a side effect.
yes,
Wow.
absolutely. I'll never forget there was one night I was in here. I came home after work. I would literally go to work, come home, go to bed. The only time I wouldn't go straight to bed is if we were recording the Short Desk podcast on a Monday. And I would
Mhm.
come in here, sit, record, go to bed. So, and people would tell me the whole time, they were like, you don't look sick, you don't act sick. When I tell y'all,
Mhm.
I was a great actress during those 6 months because I didn't want people to see how bad it was for me. Like, I don't know if that was a pride thing. I don't know. Because I remember when you all came down in July, y'all were like, Steph looks so good. I was like, I don't feel
Mm.
good.
But do you think that would have been helpful to share that type of struggle with people so that way they can understand that it's not all strawberries and
I
cherries.
understand that now. I didn't
Okay.
understand it then because my thing was I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me.
Okay.
Um,
I got you.
I got in here. It was one night I'll never forget this night as long as I live. I came home from work and I was so sick, and I ate some crackers because I had not eaten anything all day because I couldn't eat. I couldn't stand the smell of food, and so I ate some crackers and I threw them back up, right back. When I tell you, as soon as I ate them, right back up. So I
Mhm.
was in here. I was sitting on the floor and I was too weak to get up. So I had thrown up on the floor. I was laying there. I was like, I was too weak to get up. My phone was across the room, so I couldn't call anybody. And I laid there on the floor and I just cried and cried and cried. And I was like, I said it just like this. I said, God, please take me now.
Mm.
I don't want to be here anymore. It was also
Wow.
at that moment that I had to forgive my father. Because this last
Mhm.
time that my father had cancer a couple of times. This last time that my father had cancer and he eventually passed, I was angry at him because I was like, he refused treatment. He told my mother, he said, I'm not going through that again.
Mm,
I fully understand why my father did that now. I
mm.
fully understand because I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not doing that again either. If this can't, God forbid, this cancer comes back, they can take both breasts off quickly,
Mhm.
quickly.
So, how long was they scheduled the chemo treatment for?
It was supposed to be for 24 weeks, and I ended up doing 22 because
Okay,
the tumor actually shrunk faster than they predicted. Yeah.
really?
So then they space things out. So you finish chemo, then you have to wait 30 days before they do the surgery, which was my lumpectomy.
Hmm.
So the lumpectomy, in all honesty, that was the easiest part of this whole process.
So, the
Mhm.
lumpectomy, is that taking out what is left of the lump after
Yes,
chemo?
they removed the tumor and they also removed the lymph nodes under my left arm, only because they wanted to
So,
test them.
So let me ask you
Mhm,
something. And I know you had said something earlier about that, what they said about splitting it open and
mhm.
everything. So why did they explain why they wait till after chemo to take it out rather than taking it out beforehand?
Well, the chemo shrinks it. So the thing about it is with a tumor that large, if they cut,
Hmm.
there's a large chance they may actually cut
It'll
the
spread.
actual tumor and it'll spread. You know how your
Okay, so
grandmas used to say if you cut on cancer, it's gonna spread?
yeah,
True.
absolutely.
It's true.
Oh, so they thought they would cut it at that
Yeah, and
size.
it'll spread. So
Ah,
when they shrunk
okay,
it, it was
gotcha.
less than 1 millimeter. And it was so crazy because the hardest part of that day was you have to go get this clip put in the breast tissue before the surgery, and they keep you awake for that. That is the most painful
Oh,
IT ever in life. And
wow.
listen, the doctor that did that, I have to, when I see him again, I have to apologize to him. He's not my doctor, but that's all he does, put clips in breast tissue. I cursed that man
Mm,
out so bad because I never experienced pain like that ever. And I was looking at him like,
wow.
he said, sir, like there were tears in my eyes. So the day of the lumpectomy, the tumor was so small at first they couldn't find it.
Oh, wow.
They couldn't find it. It's dense breast tissue, and then they looking for this tiny tumor. And my doctor, shout out to him. I love him. He's amazing. He's one of those doctors that's really confident in his skill. And
Hmm.
again, they wheeled me into this operating room full of black men. My nurse was black. All the black men took care of me throughout this whole journey. I love y'all for that.
Mm.
And my doctor was bumping some Gucci man. And I looked around, I said, I really do not want you cutting on me while you are listening to East Atlanta Santa.
He had to have something to calm his
Yes,
nerves.
but he was great. Shout out to Piedmont, their whole hospital system. And I also have to give a shout out to our friend Rock Butler. And I say this because when Rock first heard on the show, on the Short Desk podcast, that I had cancer, he inboxed me immediately. He said, I don't care what doctors you're with. He said, you need to go to Piedmont. And I said, already on it, because they
Mm,
have the best breast care specialists in Metro Atlanta. And he was telling me about a friend of his that had cancer and how they were just really great. And I said, I'm already on it.
good, good, good.
So they removed the tumor. Uh, I went home same day actually. And my
Mm,
mom was here with me for 2 weeks because they give you 2 week recovery time from a lumpectomy.
okay.
And then, well, let me back up. After chemo, I rang my bell on August 26th. So that was amazing.
Wonderful.
So then I had my surgery, my lumpectomy on September 26th, because, like I said, you have to wait 30 days. So then you have to wait another 30 days before you can start radiation. Now, I
Mm,
initially was not scheduled to go to radiation.
mm,
Um, but they sent me because of the fact that it was an aggressive form of cancer, how fast it came up. So they do radiation kind of like a prevention method. It increases the chances that the cancer will not return.
hmm.
So, my official cancer-free date is October 26th. I mean September 26th. I'm
Okay.
sorry, September
September
26th.
26th. Yeah.
So
Okay.
I started radiation a month after my, I was supposed to start a month after my lumpectomy. I forgot what happened, but I ended up starting radiation at the beginning of December. So that was every day for 3 weeks.
Hmm.
So then I had to again go to a special type of radiation because of my heart health issues. So what it is if you have a heart history, they do like a special breathing technique where you have to hold your breath for 20 seconds at a time to move the heart out of the way for the radiation for them to zap.
Oh my
Yeah,
word.
it was a lot, but I went every morning at 7:30 from 7:30 to 7:50 every morning for 3 weeks straight, except for Saturdays and Sundays. Um, Radiation is tiring, for lack of a better word. Now that's really when I should have took time off from work because
Hmm.
you and I went in the mornings and worked because they said about 10 to 12 hours after your radiation, you're going to begin to feel it. And mine wasn't even 10 to 12 hours. It was like 8. My drives home from work were horrible. I had to continually stop and get Gatorade or just stop to rest. Radiation makes you feel like Rocky and Apollo at the end of their fight. Like you just tired. You have nothing left to give.
What's worse for you, chemo or radiation? And I mean, you've kind of given it away, but just to clarify, what was the worst
The
experience?
chemo.
The
The
the chemo.
chemo.
Okay.
Absolutely. I wouldn't
Okay.
wish that on listen, I would not wish that on any body. And anytime since then that I've heard of anybody having to go to chemo, I've literally like shed tears for them. I'm
Well,
sorry. That's all I can say. I'm so sorry if there's anything that I can do. And what I try to do is be for them what I know I needed during that time period. Because when I look back on it, I was like, girl, you were doing too much. You should have slowed down. But, radiation, the only thing about radiation is it literally burns your skin up.
mhm.
And it takes a while for the color to come back to your skin because I mean, it's been almost a year and I'm still waiting.
Wow.
um,
Wow.
but what people don't talk about often enough is how, after all of that is over, in the months and a couple of years after, you're still experiencing side effects. You go through a bout of depression. It's a lot. It's a lot. Um, because I was battling that, late this summer, like August and September were horrible months for me because this
Mhm.
cloud of depression just fell over me and I didn't know what to do, which way to turn. It's a lot emotionally too. They don't talk about
Mhm.
after cancer. So yeah, every day I'm still fighting to get back to normal. It's like any day now.
So let me ask you, with all of that being done,
Mhm.
are you officially in remission?
Yes, I am. I
Okay.
am.
So no cancer
No,
cells,
I just had
no.
a full checkup
Go
and
ahead.
mammogram the other day. Everything's clear.
Okay. Now, what, and that's a blessing. I'm very, 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 very happy to hear that. Um, some of the realities you just spoke on, dealing with the depression.
Mhm.
Let me ask you: do the doctors ever? Did they ever come to you and say, "Hey, there's a percentage that this could come back," or is that a discussion that they have with you?
Absolutely. Because of that reason, I have to go have a mammogram and check up every 6 months instead of every year. With triple negative breast cancer, the chances of recurrence are higher.
Hmm.
But they decrease every year that you go and everything is clear. So the chances of a recurrence decrease the longer I go without recurrence, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, it
So that's
does.
why the radiation came into play because they wanted to kill as many cells around, where the area where that tumor was, because it's a pocket there right now, and there's some scar
Hmm.
tissue and fluid, which the fluid is normal, I was told. Because at first I'm like, I'm in pain, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm still in pain most days. I'm like, I'm in pain,
Hmm.
and they were like, oh, that fluid is normal. So I also have to go to physical therapy. Um, but yeah, they deep dive into everything except for the emotions that come after the cancer is gone. And I know people like that's crazy, but I'm like, trust me, it is a lot. It is.
Yeah. And I think one of the key things to in the journey of dealing, not only with breast cancer, but any cancer
Mhm.
diagnosis, but in specifically, we're talking about your diagnosis is support. What did support look like for you while you were going through this?
For the most part, those of you who truly love me were there for me. But when I tell
Hmm.
you support came from some unexpected places, and I hadn't heard from some people that I expected to be right there, still to this day, haven't heard from them. So it's like for a while, I kind of felt abandoned by some of the people closest to me.
Hmm.
Um, that was one thing. I realized who my real friends were. Um, Everybody was so sweet to me. I was just sitting there. Iris, your wife, Iris gave me the most beautiful flowers. I just, you all, y'all with the Hardricks with the care packages. Let me tell y'all something. These people love me. I don't care what y'all say. Mama Johnson had conversations with me. Shout out to her. My mom, let me tell y'all something. My mama is a rock star. I don't care what anybody says. She didn't sweat, didn't, well, not where I could see anyway.
Hmm.
She
Of
was
course,
great.
of
She
course.
was great, even from miles away. It I lost some friends.
Hmm.
Cancer really revealed some people to me, and that's why I tell people, because one of the things I asked God, I said, if people are not for me, remove them. You have to be careful
Hmm.
praying that prayer, because that's a powerful prayer. You have to be
Hmm.
prepared for
Hmm.
what's coming. So I did that. I was like, God, if they're not going to be here for me, if they're not going to support me, remove them. And he did that.
One
Yeah.
gotcha. Now, with the support, also, there's also other things that go on, in your journey, like different foundations, different walks. Um, they have all these things. Have you been involved in any charities or walks and support for breast cancer? Because this is part of you now. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You went through it, you beat it, and it's a community of people that are out there that are either facing the same struggles or have beat it, and so I know that they try to band together. Have you been a part of any of those? And if you have, what are those that you've been a part
Oh,
of?
absolutely. Now, I will say I've been walking Relay for Life since I was 13 years old, because my father
Mm.
fought cancer when I was 13, his first time having cancer. And then at
Hmm.
16, I watched my aunt die from breast cancer. So I've been a supporter of these foundations and walks way before I got cancer.
One.
But now I'm in a space where with Relay for Life and Susan G. Komen, I know people they say bad things about Susan G. Komen, but let me tell y'all something. Those people hook me up. They send me a check, pay some bills for me. Not that I needed it, but I appreciated it. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
but I am now in full blown. What? How can I give back? Because let me tell you something else. Survivor's guilt is a thing. Because there were
Hmm.
some women who went to college with me, and some I know we all kind of got diagnosed around the same time, and we
Hmm.
lost a couple of them. Survivor's
Wow.
guilt is a thing.
Wow.
And I had to tell myself, I can't sit here and feel sad because I survived and somebody didn't. I mean, I feel sad for them, but who am I to question God keeping me here? You know what I'm saying? So I'm
Yeah.
I'm grateful. But absolutely. So now I'm in a space trying to figure out how I can give back in the way of educating uh,
Hmm.
women. I had this woman reach out to me. She actually worked with the Joe Budden podcast. She worked with some shows here in Atlanta, and she was like, "You should do a show." And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Ma'am, I'm not in a space right now." And when I say I'm not in a space right now, I don't want anybody to feel like I am not here to educate women so they cannot go through the same things that I go through. What I'm saying
Hmm.
is, I'm still trying to climb my way out of this little hole that I'm in.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
when that is, I'm just praying like, God, tell me. how it is that you want me to present information to people so I can help people and get the word out there and get people tested. Because let me back up by saying my breast cancer, because I had genetic testing. They make you do that now
Mm-hmm.
when you're
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed. My breast cancer
Mm-hmm.
was genetic, not hormonal.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it was set up, because again, my mother had a sister with two sisters with breast cancer. My grandmother had breast cancer. Other women in my family have had breast cancer. One of my mother's daughters was going to get breast cancer. The way it
Mm-hmm.
was set up, so each generation, the chances increases. So I pray it doesn't happen, but the likelihood of one of my nieces getting breast cancer is very high,
Mm-hmm.
and then their children is going to be higher, and then it's going to increase. So it's a gene.
Mm-hmm.
So the way it
Mm-hmm.
was set up, either one of my mom's daughters or one of my female first cousins, or the male too, because men get breast cancer, y'all. So if you
Mm-hmm.
feel something funny,
Mm-hmm.
go to the doctor.
Right.
But one of my mother's children or one of my first cousins was going to get breast cancer. It was just one or more. It's a given.
Yeah.
So I just urge people, go get tested. If you're over 40, if there's a history of breast cancer in your family, get the genetic testing, do your self breast exams. People want to talk about, what you eat, what you drink, and that's important too. But mine was genetic. So I don't care if I just ate grass and drank water, I was going to get cancer.
Right.
It
Right.
was
Right.
inevitable. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, we thank God that you have beat it, and we're praying that God keeps you in good health, that none of those things reoccur. And I trust and believe in that, as I'm sure that you do as well. Is there anything that we can let the listeners know to support you in what you're doing with your breast cancer survival process, or anything, any foundations that you're linked to, or anything at this moment?
I just ask that people donate not just their money, but their time to the American Cancer Society,
Mm.
to Susan G. Komen Foundation. You can also look up online if they're having walks, if they're having any fundraisers and things of that sort, because people have them all the time. I actually missed the annual More Than Pink walk, and it actually would have been my first one as a survivor. I hate I missed it, but it was for a good reason. But I look forward to doing that every year as well. And my goal is to do multiple cities in these
Okay.
cancer walks. So, just if you know someone who is fighting not just breast cancer, but any type of cancer, I just urge you to find out how to show up for them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know what to do, you don't know what to say. Sometimes it's as simple as taking them some bread, eggs, and milk. So,
One,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Every little bit counts. Steph, I thank you so much for coming on today to talk about your journey and how you beat
Thank
cancer.
you.
Um, Not everybody can say that. I actually found out, just a couple of days ago, lost a classmate from high
Oh,
school
Jesus. I'm
um,
sorry.
with breast cancer, married with two little girls, but, it happens. And so I like that you were able to come on here, bring awareness. Um, and yours was a unique situation in how you found out. So, ladies, please take care of the tatas
Yes,
and
please.
do your self check exam, so you make sure everything is right as well.
Yes.
I really appreciate it, Steph. Thank you so much for joining Conversations with Ronnie Keith.